Hello, this is Oliver speaking from FlowWorks. I'd like to give you a very short introduction of the Flow device and workflow manager. That's a core module of our proposal to Babcock. The job of the device and workflow manager is exactly as its name. It's there to integrate all third-party devices that might be of some use in a workflow, whatever that workflow might be. And of course, it's the place where you actually build, manage, review, and edit and alter your workflows at any given time. So the surface we're looking at right now is just the Flow Center, and there's an area here called Workflows. I'm going to call up the Workflow Manager to show you how a workflow might look or how it's built. So I'm calling up an existing workflow. It's called Align. And as you can already see, the workflow is basically comprised of logical steps. These are these little boxes. We call these boxes nodes. Now, a node is basically a container for a logical function, and that function might be a flow center function. Could be something like an import of an XML sheet and then reading that out, parsing that, and writing it into the database. Or it could be a function of a third-party tool. For example, down here, I have a carbon coder included. Or it could be something very simple as I am sending something to an FTP at the end of the workflow here. So these individual nodes are basically the chain links rather, that make up the entire chain, the workflow chain, obviously. And the way these nodes come into the workflow, you see over here in the workflow manager, you have lists of functions basically. It could be sources, so sources of information. Let's say I am wanting to introduce a further XML. I simply pull that from here and I place it in the workflow, and then I connect it up in the location where I'd like the workflow to do that job. So I'm placing it in the workflow, and then I have a little button here, that's the little wheel, and if I hit that, I can basically now write a XML parser by simply adding mapping here, for example. So let's say I want to import a field, which is the date and time field, and I want a database value to match that to, let's call that the timestamp. I'm done, hit the next one, add another mapping, and hence I'm really doing my XML parsing. So in the individual nodes, you can do all the settings. For example, here you can do a transcoder setting, and you can see it's got all the detail. And to you as an admin who's building this workflow, it's totally irrelevant whether that's a flow center function or I'm using one of the attached third-party machinery. So I have sources, I have workers, which could be, for example, another transcoder. It could be a zip archive, it could be a QC system. This is just a bit arbitrary in a demo system. Or it could be targets like I'm going to use an FTP, I'm going to use a Signient, I'm going to use an Aspera. The way you build your workflows is you simply create a logical chain of events. You configure each of these nodes, and then you test your workflow. If you're happy with your workflow, you simply save it off, and then the workflow is up and running. There are two further questions that might be of interest to you. So how do we get the third-party machinery into here, let's say the carbon coder for that matter, or any other transcoder for that matter? We simply hook them up via API. As soon as there's an API available, we will integrate that into our system. So there's one cockpit which allows you to steer all of your machinery. Should you feel like it, and we welcome that, of course, and you'd like to write your own little routines, your own little scripts, you can also use the nodes and simply basically use them as a shell. You place a script inside, you place the node as you would with any other node, as I've done here before, hook it up, and hey presto, it's part of your workflow. So it's all fairly sweet and simple. You have a list of different workflows here. Let's look at a workflow that distributes to Sky, to their VOD platform. I'm not going to go through the individual steps now, it might take too long. But this is actually a real workflow we're running over at Viacom in Amsterdam to supply Sky, for example. There's another bit that might be of interest to you, just to close this up very briefly. the workflow viewer. That will give you an overview over a workflow. Let's select that align workflow again. And this is a dummy workflow, so you're not really seeing much. I can basically look into each individual node and look how many jobs are running through there. What is that node doing? I can call up, nothing in there. I can call up the jobs that are queued, that have run, that have had errors, etc. So I've got a full monitoring environment here as well. And you've got your whole list of different workflows. You can call each of them and have a look at them. You can turn them on and off. They're closed here at the moment. And that will help you manage your entire environment. Okay, that was a very, very brief introduction to the device and workflow manager, an absolutely core tool. It's in use with big broadcasters and other big companies. So we're happy if you found more interest in this. Thanks.